Hi, I'm Ty. I am a master designer in the West Seattle store of Ulta Beauty. I've been with Ulta for almost 3 years now. After being a manager for 2 years, I decided that I wanted to change my path and follow down the artistic side of things. I was first inspired by Julie when she came in and did our grand opening training at Victoria, which was amazing. It instantly renewed my interest of becoming an educator. I look forward to working that path as we go. Color is one of my favorite things to do, so today we'll be working with Venice. I'll introduce her momentarily. She is a natural redhead, so we're kind of keeping in that. And so today I am going to be using Chromatics Ultra Rich. I love that it is fortifying for the hair. I love that it is super shiny. The Ultra Rich gives us that monochromatic dimension, and that's gonna work really well for my client today. We're engaging back to her natural color, so over time we're going to work that into it, but I think that's going to give us the best amount of effect. It also works with the highlights I'm doing so that I don't have too much going on in all the lighting, coloring and such. We're going to be highlighting with Blonde Dimension, and that is awesome because it is conditioning, it's really gentle, and we're only going for a really soft lift with this anyway. We're going to use our shades Gloss to refresh their color, add a little more shine and vibrancy. We're incorporating pH Bonder into the highlight and the low light, where she's already had her hair processed, so we want to keep that nice and strong. Finish setting up with the step 2 and make her hair beautifully strong, healthy, and looking great. So this is Denise. She's my model today. She's been a client with me for going on a year-ish. Based on what we have been planning and what we're doing, we've decided to move closer to her natural color, which is not too far from where we're at because of the fading stuff. We had her really bright with some blonde highlights. We're moving back towards a more monochromatic color eventually. But today we're going to be doing a touch up on her roots and then going through and doing a little highlighting. I'm calling sparkle lights through the fringe area. All right, Venice is a natural level 6'7". She's got a natural red tone to her hair. We've been staying in the red tones, so going back and moving this all back to a natural is more just a matter of not doing a bunch of crazy stuff. All right. Today we're going to utilize Chromatics Ultra Rich because it gives great gray coverage as well as that nice chromatic but twinkling of color in its dimension. I'm going to blend 6NN and 6BC together to keep her warmth but deepen up that color, and also again for that great coverage with the NN. We'll be refreshing after we get done with the highlight and low light with the 7CB Spice Stone by the shades Gloss, so that we're being really nice to her ends and also creating a lot of shine and getting her even toned. So for Venice's formula, we are combining 20 grams of 6BC, the brown copper, with 10 grams of 6NN. Again, just to adding that NN to control gray and make sure that we get a really beautiful natural looking color all the way through. I'm only going to be using 10 volume because we're only doing depositing. We're deepening up her color a little bit. So I am sectioning into 4 quadrants just for our basic color application. We're going to be working in zone 1, just touching up her natural color. So with our base color application, we're just going to take diagonal sectionings, 1/4 inch wide, and just applying to our grow out. Remembering with chromatics, we need to make sure we have really good coverage so that that surrounds the hair and gets good saturation of that color. And we'll continue doing this for about 10 to 15 minutes. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to touch up, because this is a little bit darker, we're expecting fading to happen. So by the time we come around 6 to 8 weeks to your color again, we'll be looking at it probably about your natural level, and we'll just kind of gear that towards moving out of our highlights and lowlights into just letting it grow out and keeping your color looking steady and beautiful. all these little areas where you've got previous color already, we're putting color on it, we're going to end up with it being, it could potentially be a little darker than we want it to be, so we want to avoid overlapping those. So we're working on the second back quadrant of the base application, moving right through it. So back here in these short areas, we're going in, and of course we're trying to stay in zone 1, but being really short, there may be overlap and that sort of thing. Sometimes with this, I use that to my advantage and just go ahead and cover those a little bit more to create a little more depth, since we know color and color goes darker, to create a little more low light along her weight line and back. So I'm not stressing if I get a little bit overlap on that where I wouldn't necessarily want it. Alright, so we're mixing shades cream, the 5WB warm beige. This is going to be our low light. In our shades cream, shades EQ cream, let's be real, and in our lightener, I'm going to be adding in our pH bonder as well, since we're working in hair that's already been processed, and then we're going to apply these with foils. For our highlights, we'll be using Blonde Dimension. I like it because it's got the gentlest lift and it's got conditioner stuff there, and it smells great. Since we're only doing a little bit of lightening, we're only going to be using a 10 volume just to bring up a little bit lighter to get that little sparkle in the ends. The mixing ratio for Blonde Dimensions is 1 scoop per 1 ounce of developer. So I've got 2 scoops, so I'm using 2 ounces of developer. And then in our lightener, we're going to be adding a total of 8 milliliters of pH bonder. And in this one, since I only got about half an ounce of color, I'm only using about 1.5 millimeter of pH bonder in our Shades EQ cream. For this highlight design, we're going to follow the design line of her fringe. Venice parts on the left side. And this technique is meant to basically add a little sparkle right through the fringe and then kind of trail off into the rest of the hairstyle. So we're going to section off about where her bangs would normally sit. So we're going to go from about her left part that off, then I'm doing a cross, kind of a diagonal parting to the back of the ear. Being careful not to manipulate the color underneath and spread that to where we don't want it. Once we have this pie-shaped section, I'm going to clip that off just to keep it away for the moment so I can clip everything else back without doing a bunch of manipulating of that color underneath. Once we have the pie-shaped parting that takes out all of her fringe, we're going to be doing a horizontal subsection starting in the front, about a ½ inch beyond her hairline. This is going to show, if you get this, once you get this combed out, be careful not to spread that color. We're going to make a ½ inch horizontal subsection and do a very, very thin slice, almost like baby lights. And this is going to be our foundation for our sparkle lights. With this one, we're going to start with a low light. So after we do our first ½ inch subsection, we're going to take another subsection just about 1/4 inch wide, clear crossed. And this is going to be the first of our foils with lightener in them. This one follows the curve. We're head a little bit around, so we're going to split that where that starts to curve. We're going to do a separate one there. And we're going to separate this foil into 2 colors. The pink foils are going to be where we have our low light only. The silver foils, aluminum, the silver foils will be where we have both our low light and our sparkle light happening. So where our base color ends in zone 1, we're going to begin applying that color almost out to mid shaft, leaving about the last inch free for the lightener. Now, with this, we wanted to consider in our design how long we're going to want this to last in our hair. With Venice, we're looking at really only wanting to see this through the end of summer for about a couple months. So we're going to just add that lightener to like the last inch of the hair. That's about 2 haircuts. So in about 2 haircuts, we know that will be gone. We're not highlighting any more hair than we need to, and we're only giving the effect that we want for as long as we want it, and not having to damage any other hair. So make sure you take that first fold of your foil past where the lightener begins, and so that we protect that and we don't have that smear and move into places we don't. Make a very fine slice. Again, just maybe 2 or 3 hairs thick in there, and then we're going to throw low light in that. So continuing, taking 1/2 inch subsections and very fine slicing. We're continuing our pattern of low light, slice, low light, highlight combo. So just after we do our first 1/2 inch subsection, take another very small slice right above that to do our low light, highlight combo. It's important not to overlap our product when we don't want to cause irregular color. We also have 2 different types of products. Don't want to make a line right there where they meet. So on our last section, I am going to forego doing the low light slice and just do one more slice, very thin slice again, with our highlight and low light together to finish it off and allow that to trail back with a little less background. Again, if you want to avoid overlapping your colors and your lightener with those, it causes strange lines, weird things. Now that we have all the foils in, as you can see, it's just through the fringe. You can tell which ones my lowlights are versus my highlights. Got those all in. The rest of this we're going to take and use our Shades Gloss to refresh. We're using 7CB. We're using our gloss because, one, this has been colored before. We want to keep it light and not get too dark, so we're going for level 7. The copper browns are perfect for blending in with the rest of it. We'll keep this sparkly, shiny, and keep it healthy. So I'm mixing my Shades EQ Gloss, 1/2 ounces to cover the rest of it. I'm going to mix that directly with the processing solution with no clear. I'll be adding the pH bonder to this formula to encourage protection, plus the whole building of the hair shaft back up. In our color, we only need 2 milliliters per ounce of color. So in this being 1.5 ounces, we only need about 3 milliliters altogether. And we're using our pH bonder to protect the hair shaft, and also in our part 2 to rebuild those strands. So we'll be applying the Shades Gloss to Zone 2, which is all that Venice has at this point. Again, being careful not to overlap them so that we get a heavy line of color. We're just going through at this point and putting a refreshed color throughout the foils as well. Now that we've got everything applied, her highlights are processing, her refresh is on. We're going to let this process for about 20 minutes total once we get it all on there. We've got about 18 minutes left. We're going to let this sit and do its thing. We'll check on the foils in a few minutes just to make sure our lightness is getting where we want it to, as well as not over processing. And then after that, we'll rinse and complete our pH bonder with the part 2, and then shampoo, and we'll come back and trim her up. Alright, we're checking in the last 6 seconds. I think everything is going to look great. There it is. And we've come up. You can see we've got our color, our highlight at the end, and it's perfect. So we're going to go to the shampoo bowl and we're going to take these out and rinse. Now normally I would look at toning my highlights. However, since this sparkle light is such a really subtle technique, toning is, I don't know, in some ways not really necessary unless you've got a much larger sections or you're using a bigger stitch that creates more of a presence. Then you might look at toning those. I think for what we're doing, plus she's already in the red tone, so a little bit of warmth that will work just fine in the overall finished look. At this point, I like to remind myself that we're only rinsing, we're not shampooing at this point. At the next step is going to be rinse this really well. Is that water working okay for you? And we're going to do our pH bonder step 2 and let that sit in the hair for 10 minutes. Once we got the pH bonder all saturating through those ends, especially where we had step 1 happening, we're going to let this sit for 10 minutes. Alright, it's been 10 minutes. We're going to rinse out and shampoo. Today we're going to be using the hair cleansing cream by Redken, just because I've been using the Chromatics, which is that oil base. And we want to make sure we get all that out of there before we move on. So we're finishing off with a little blend of the Extreme and All Soft conditioner, just to give her a little rebuilding, a little softness, a little moisture back in there. Hair feels really good as it is. So most of Venice's haircut is done on a horizontal line, where we parting off just about the occipital or just above. Alright, once we have I have her hair parted off horizontally right above the occipital bone. We can see where her weight is starting to fall. We're going to take and just trim up her hairline, keeping it nice and soft, using a point cut to create that soft edge, keep it nice and feminine. Slightly overextending the very edge of the perimeter to keep a little bit of length beyond what we're trimming, so that again, keeping that softness and edge looking nice, soft. Following the angle, a slightly diagonal forward in my finger movements. I'm going to be angling my fingers out as I move forward to keep that length growing as we get towards the ear. Alright, so after I've got that weight line trimmed back up, we're going to go back in and just catch any long hairs that need to be trimmed. Make sure it looks nice and smooth. From here, I'm going to continue taking horizontal partings through the back of the head up to the top of the head, about 1 inch each, and just moving down until none of the lake reaches the weight. All I'm going to be doing is using a point cut to keep our edges and lines really soft, going in and just making sure at a 0 degree, straight down from where it grows, that it is blending into the forward. I'm not really doing much for the length because we're going and we cut the length, trimmed it up last haircut, which was about a month ago. Pulling the next section down, I pulled about another inch section, inch and a half, maybe 2. Anyway, because I know a lot of that's not going to blend in because it's air legs. I'm just going to check to make sure everything is lining up. Again, 0 degrees, straight down, just getting any of those excess hairs that might be beyond the length at this point after trimming. All right. We're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Take about a 1-inch parting from the ear. And just blending through at a 0 degree to make sure that our line is staying good. And get another inch, inch and a half, just pull that down, just making sure that we don't have any stray ends that are longer than the rest of it. For the rest of Venice's haircut, I'm just going to make sure all layers are looking nice and blended and even. I'm going to be doing vertical partings, about 1 inch each, just going through and just make sure again those corners are blended out. We've gone through and made sure all of Venice's layers blend and that they're smoothing out. Didn't have to take a whole lot off. Again, the color is looking good as it's drying, and we're gonna move into getting her styled out. We're gonna be doing just a simple brown brush blowout. I'm gonna smooth it out a little bit so we can really see our highlights effect. So you're just using a basic classic blowout styling. We're just smoothing out, using a round brush to smooth out her wave into a nice little bob. So for Venice's blowout, we do a straight down, horizontal brush, forward, down, forward kind of swoop. For the top half, we're going to swoop back so we get that nice movement going forward, and then what is that called when Farrah Fawcett does it?
Feather?
Feathering, yes. It's the feathering effect going back.
That just called my area.
All the while building a little volume by overextending or over. I don't remember what the word is. Over directing, that's it. Over directing that root back so we get a little volume to the top. As you can see, as it dries, we're getting our little sparkle towards the front there. Finishing. Finishing with a little wax blast. It's a light hold, but we really want that texture. I love how Venice's hair really works well with a little bit of it. A little bit of spray, that's what I'm trying to say. All right, and that is our finished look. Highlights, a little trim, and Venice is ready to go for another 6 weeks, which we're gonna get her rebooked right now. Well, yeah, already rebooked. There we go.